here we go. Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. So today, two parts in this video. I'm going to kind of address one of them. The reason why I'm lumping this in is because I don't think you guys understand where I'm at from a kit perspective is that interesting, but we're still going to talk about it. And then we're going to talk about this lens that you clicked on this thing for. So I'll try to remember in post to put a little thing up here where you can skip to if you don't care about knowing what my kit is as of this time, because I'm all in with Micro Four Thirds right now. And I want to tell you about it. So just real quickly, I did sell everything else. So I sold like the remaining L mount lenses I have. I sold the remaining Leica gear I have, M mount stuff, anything else I had. It's all gone. And I'm currently shooting exclusively on Micro Four Thirds. Now last video you guys saw I was shooting with an OM5, and I ended up returning that and getting the EM1 Mark III, because the OM5 and the EM1 Mark III are essentially the same camera, mainly because of two reasons. One, Olympus had their refurbished clearance sale, 44% off. I got the EM1 Mark III for $700, or $7 and some change, whatever it was. And also the EM1 Mark III is a more robust body, so put a couple $100 back in my pocket. It's a better body, win-win overall. So there's that. At the time I had the 9mm 1.7, the 17-1.8, and the 45-1.8. A little bit of change there. I still have the 9mm 1.7. I actually swapped it with the local viewer to check out this Voigtlander lens that we're going to talk about today. So I'm recording on the 20mm 1.4 right now, which I swapped the 17 1.8 for. There was a glitch on Amazon for like an hour where they had 36% off basically all camera stuff. So I was able to get this this 20mm 1.4 for a very good price. And then the 45-1.8 I still have. And I've also added since then the 12-35 f2.8. This is the Lumix lens, that version 2. Similarly, Best Buy had a fire sale on these. I think they retail new for like $800-900, maybe $1,000, whatever they are, somewhere in that ballpark. I got this for $400 out the door, so it's a really good travel zoom, sharp, small, lightweight that I can use. And then in addition to that, I picked up this bad boy. We'll talk about this in a future video, which is why I'm doing this now. This is the 300mm f4, and I got the 1.4 teleconverter to go along with it. And so we're going to talk about that in an upcoming video as I'm going up north and more photography stuff. That's why I'm getting this kind of gear update out of the way. That's all I have. I'd say that's all, but that's my entire kit as of today. But today we're going to talk about this bad boy right here. This is the 25mm f0.95 Voigtlander lens. And I've always wanted to try this lens out because when I had my Leica M mount, I tried a Voigtlander piece of glass. I liked the way the Voigtlander looked. I like the fact that this has kind of got that premium feel to it or whatever, and I just wanted to try it. And so a local viewer, I won't name him here because I don't know if he wants to be named, but he reached out and said, hey, willing to swap this lens if you're willing to let me try the 9mm 1.7 Leica lens. And so we arranged for that. And so I've been shooting this for the last like 4 days or so. I'm shooting a bunch of photos, and this certainly isn't an extensive review, but I want a couple thoughts I want to share with you if you're looking at this. And I think why a lot of people would be looking at this lens is to kind of get to the point where they say, how do I get the full frame-ish depth of field, maybe, on Micro Four Thirds if I wanted to do it? And if you guys know the equivalency stuff, to shoot with an f1.8, 1.9 depth of field on full frame, you got to shoot 0.95 on Micro Four Thirds. And that presents some problems and it presents some interesting things. So we'll talk about those in a second. The first thing I want to talk about is I'll talk about the build quality of this. And I don't know if you guys can see this right here, but this is a all metal construction. It's got these cool little ridges for manual focus. It's a manual focus lens, it's not autofocus. And just so I can put this right here. You guys see how long this throw is on the manual focus? Look at that. It's a long, long throw. So if you're using this for video or even for just precise focusing, I love that about it, which is really, really cool. And it's really smooth. It's one of the smoothest focusing lenses I've ever used. It's similar to the Leica lens I had, which is really awesome. It's all metal, it's heavy. So if you're looking at this versus maybe the 25 1.2 Olympus lens, this is about the same weight. Maybe this is a little bit longer, but not as fat. They're about the same thing. So it's not a small lens, but it definitely feels premium and it feels good in the hands. Obviously, you also have here the 0.95 marking for the aperture. And you guys hear this, it's a click aperture, but if you go on front here and you turn this ring, and I won't do it right now, there's a ring right here, you see this? It'll declick the aperture. So if you want it for video, you can turn this ring right here, this little front ring, and it'll de-click the aperture so that you can use it for video without any clicky noises going through or whatever, any vibrations in the lens, which is really, really cool. So let's talk about the good thing about this lens. And I'll put some pictures up as I'm talking to you guys that I've taken along the way. The cool thing about this is you get that shallow depth of field. It kind of almost replicates the full frame look in a way, if you will. That is a positive. It's a premium experience. It has a rendering that is different, unique than the Olympus lenses, for sure. And so it's got the typical Voigtlander quality. And just is a more engaging experience overall. It feels weighty, feels good. And if you stop this thing down, it gets sharp. But I think that's about where I'll stop with some of the positives. I know it's short and quick, because I do want to talk about some of the negatives. I think if you're getting into this, the negatives are something you should be aware of. First and foremost, this was pointed out to me by a friend of mine. This lens does have the chromatic aberrations in the highlights, the purple fringing, if you will. I'll put a picture up here. My son's jersey, the logos are white, and you see it has kind of a purplish hue to it. So that's one problem. You gotta be careful with the chromatic aberrations when shooting into sunlight, especially wide open on this fast glass. Now, a lot of fast glass has this issues because it's just kind of a trade-off sometimes. Not all, but some do. So that's one thing. The second thing is f95, 0.95, it's soft. It kind of gives it a dreamy look. Now, if you stop it down, it does get sharp, and I'll show you some pictures at the end representing that, but it is a problem. Third, it is big and heavy. I don't mind it, but some people might, being Micro Four Thirds shooters. So that's the third problem. It's manual focus. So this is, and you're not focusing with a rangefinder, which I find to be faster. You're focusing electronically. Now I've set up my EM1 Mark III where the AF on button is to punch in for manual focus to get critical focus. But you're going to be manual focusing this, and so it's not a fast lens. It's going to slow you down. Again, some people like that, and that's okay. No problem there. What else about this lens that maybe you want to be careful with or want to know about it? I think that's it. I mean, if you're considering something like this, you're buying it because it's more of a character lens than it is a clinical lens. I think there's definitely room for this, and I actually like using it for that reason. It slows me down. It feels kind of like when I was shooting my M glass on my SL2S. It kind of feels like a Leica rangefinder, minus the rangefinder part in a way. It's just a slower experience. It feels premium. It has a cool rendering. It gives it shallow depth of field, but you got to watch out for the softness, the chromatic aberrations, and obviously this isn't something you want to do shooting sports or whatever. And so the question really is would you rather have this or the 25 1.2 Olympus lens? Would you rather have this or the 25 1.4 Leica lens? Or the 21.4, which I'm recording you on now, which we'll talk about in a second. It's really got to weigh yourself out. Do you want the autofocus? Do you not? Do you want the 0.95? Do you not? Oh, and one other thing as a negative, I almost forgot this. The 0.95. The benefit, each system has its strengths and weaknesses, and I'll talk about that more in a future video. One of the strengths of Micro Four Thirds is that you can stop way down to let more light in and still have a decent depth of field. Now, on the flip side, you have to stop way down to get a shallow depth of field, right? It's the trade-off. In this case, if you wanted to shoot 0.95 in a sunny day, your camera almost can't do it. You'd put an ND filter on there. Case in point is I shot my son's baseball T-ball game, and I had this at 0.95. Even at the electronic shutter at 1/32,000th of a second, I could not get a fast enough shutter speed to bring the exposure down to an acceptable level. I had to shoot it at 1.8, 1.9. And so at that point, you're like, well, why not just shoot an autofocus lens that's a 1.2 lens? It's something to think about. Now, if I threw an ND filter on the front, that would fix that. But that was a problem I was having, is that in bright conditions, in a sunny midday summer afternoon here in Michigan, I ran into a problem where I couldn't shoot this thing wide open because my camera didn't have a fast enough shutter speed, and electronic. So not even mechanical, 1/32,000th electronic wasn't fast enough. Okay, so that's just some quick thoughts on the 0.95, and thank you to the person, if you're watching this, to let me borrow this. I will get this back to you this week. Really, really awesome. Let's talk about this lens in some more. I'll show you some pictures, comparison pictures. I went out and I took some photos of some flowers in my yard against the 20mm 1.4 that I'm recording you on right now, because it's the lens I have, and it kind of is to me an either-or situation. Would I carry the 21.4? Would I carry the 25.95 Voigtlander? And I shot the first two. The first picture here is the 20mm 1.4 at 1.4. I'm focused in the middle of the flower. And you can see that it's sharp even at 1.4. And both of these lenses, I should mention, I guess back to the positives, since I'm doing this as one take wonder, both of these lenses focus very close. The Voigtlander lens focuses down to, what's it say here? 0.17. So that's very, very, very close, almost somewhat macro-ish in a way. This 20mm 1.4 also focuses close. And so I focused on this flower. Here's the 20mm 1.4 in the middle. You can see some detail and sharp. Now let me flip over to the 25 at 0.95, just to show you what it looks like at 0.95. And you can see how soft that flower is. Now, did I miss manual focus? I don't know, maybe. I was pretty accurate, I think. Then I stopped the lens down to 1.4, and you can still see that it sharpens up a little bit, but it's still soft. And so you have to really get down to like f2 or above to start seeing some of the sharpness in this lens. And you get down to f5.6, f8, it's plenty sharp. I then took some pictures of flowers, these roses, red roses. And similar thing here, except I did it on the opposite side of the scale. This is the 20mm 1.4 lens at f8. You can see how sharp it is. And then I shot it at 1.4, which you can see here. And then I took the 25mm and I did the same thing, shot that at f8, and then again at 1.4 it was. And you can see kind of the differences. And then last but not least, I took some portraits. Now, I just did these as like selfie portraits because to manually focus myself and then get back in the spot, like there'd be an issue there. But there's a car coming by. Diesel, yes. Okay, so then I took some portraits and I put the 20mm 1.4 lens at 20mm 1.4, so at 1.4, held it out, and I used face detection and autofocus, and I took the picture, and this is what it looks like. I then swapped to the 25mm, manually focused it, using the flip screen. That's why you like flip screens. Put it at 0.95 and took this picture. You can see, obviously, the depth of field is way different because of the wider aperture and because it's a different focal length, but you can also see the softness. I then moved it to 1.4 to kind of get at the same aperture as the 20mm, and you can see that it's still somewhat soft. It does have a different look. It has a dreamy look to it, sort of, in a way. And so, not a negative, it's just a different thing. It depends what you're going for. Now, some might say it's not fair that you did the 20mm versus the 25, they're different focal lengths. Yeah, maybe. I don't have the 25 1.2 or the 25 1.8 to kind of compare it to, so it is what it is. But I think if you're going to buy this lens, you got to kind of know what you're looking for. Are you a manual focus guy? Are you going to use the video because you want the declicked aperture? Do you want the 0.95 and that more dreamy look, but still have the ability to stop it down and get some sharpness? Do you like the weight of the lens, the rendering of the lens? It does render different than the Olympus. These are all things you got to think about, and you got to compare it to the 21.4 or the 25 1.2 or the 25 1.4. There's a lot of options out there in this space that compete against this. So hopefully that gives you enough information, you guys, to make a decision. If you have any questions, let me know. Again, this is a one-take wonder, so if I missed something or if it's out of order, I apologize. Last but not least, I'll be heading up north in a couple days. I'm going to be bringing this teleconverter with the 300 f4, and we're going to start doing some photos of wildlife, birds, that kind of stuff. That lens, the 300 f4, blew my mind, and it is the reference lens for this system. One of the reference lenses to this system. I'll talk about it more in a future video. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Appreciate it. Thanks for putting up with my one-take wonders. I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.